We take you inside the Jackson County Courthouse and the sentencing of 31-year-old Kamiya Gamut. She was convicted of first-degree murder in the brutal killing of her boyfriend, Marcel Hill. According to the evidence presented at trial, Gamut used a frying pan, a floor lamp, and a large knife, which she used to stab Hill a dozen times. Gamut claimed self-defense, saying she believed Hill was an intruder. When the verdict came back guilty, Gamut sticks to her story. Though local news only caught a handful of moments, courtroom cameras captured every minute.
Is there anything that you want to tell the court before I impose sentence? Is there anything you want to tell the victim's family who are here today?
I just want to say that I stick by the truth, which is that I did react in self-defense. I did love Marcel, and basically at trial, the way I was portrayed, mostly everything was lies. There was a little bit of truth, but mostly I was convicted off of lies, and I do plan to appeal it. And that's all I have to say.
Okay.
Judge John McBain did not agree.
I have to say.
Okay. Got it? Anything you want to tell the court about the 12 stab wounds that you did in self-defense?
The alleged 12 stab wounds?
Well, I don't think the pathologist lied about those.
No, I don't have anything further to say.
Before Gamut's sentencing, the victim's aunt, Diana Banks Joyner, addressed both Gamut and the court.
You did leave a big hole in our hearts and a void that will never be filled. You took the life of our sister's only child. You took a bloodline out of our family. And we hope that each and every day that you remember the cries of help that he screamed as you plunged that knife in and out of his body.
The defendant appeared to be unmoved by anything Miss Banks had to say.
So we, the family of Marcel, would like to thank God for the special gift that you will receive today from the judge.
Is that it?
When I finish, I'll let you know.
Oh, okay. Seriously?
You talk again, I'll have my court officer put a piece of duct tape in your mouth. You understand it? Try it one more time and see what happens to your mouth. You got something else to say?
Even with the threat of duct tape, Gamut continues.
I'm done.
Miss Sonia, get the duct tape.
I'll sit here and listen to the lies.
You know what? She's got a right to talk to the court after you
And
murdered
she can talk.
a relative of hers. And you're going to shut your mouth or I'm going to have some duct tape put on it.
Well, he attacked
All
me.
right. We'll wait here for a moment till we can get her quiet.
While the judge waits for duct tape to arrive, he allows Banks to continue.
Remember Marcel and the love you had for him as we ask God to teach us to learn to forgive you because there is no love. Amen.
And then the prosecutor rips into Gamut.
You know, quite frankly, I have no idea how she just did that with the composure that she did. I thank God also that jury made the only right decision. And that is that today we have no choice but to send her where she will also die.
But before it was all over, it was Judge McBain who had the last word.
This is one of the worst cold-blooded murders I've seen in a long time. You end up ultimately hit him in the head so hard with a pan that you actually cave in the front of his skull, and then you stabbed him no less than 12 times. You gutted him like a fish in that apartment, too. You were relentless. You stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed until he was dead. I agree with the family. I hope you die in prison as well. You know, if this was a death penalty state, you'd be getting the chair.
Judge McBain sentenced Gamut to life in prison without the chance of parole. Next, we head to Mount Clemens, Michigan for a sentencing. 39-year-old Nicholas Bahri has been found guilty on 15 charges, including 3 counts of first-degree premeditated murder, 3 counts of first-degree felony murder, arson, mutilation of a body, and several gun charges. 20 months earlier, Bahri, a convicted felon with a long rap sheet, shot and killed 32-year-old Takoyo Moore while he sat in his car in Bahri's driveway. Then, with Takoyo's body still inside the car, Bahri drove to the victim's home. Once inside, he shot and killed 28-year-old Isis Rimson, Takoyo's fiancée, and Taraz Moore, Takoyo's 6-year-old son. Next, after stealing cash from inside the home, Bahri drove Takoyo's car 11 miles before setting Takoyo and the car on fire. He even took a selfie the next day while holding a wad of the stolen money. Police investigated, and with the help of GPS and surveillance cameras, they determined that Bahri, who had served time with Takoyo in prison, was the last person to see him alive.
Bail is denied.
2 weeks later, Bahri was arrested and pled not guilty to all charges. He was denied bond, and the case went to trial, where it took the jury just 3 hours to return with a verdict: guilty on all charges. Today at sentencing before Judge Edward Servito, several of the victims' family members deliver impact statements, with Bahri seated just a few feet away.
I can't sleep at night. I'm not supposed to bury my grandson and my great-grandson, but I did.
This was my only son. I carried him in my womb since he was a seed. And everything you did to him, I feel it. I hope his face haunts you every night.
We can't get our family back. But we can see that nobody else has to suffer at the fate of his hands.
Before the judge imposes sentence, Bahri asks to speak, which he does for a defiant 15 minutes.
I am innocent, and I can explain the whole case from front to back.
You're not going to explain the whole case.
So what, you're just going to sit here and say I did it? When there's lies going on in this courtroom, they know the truth. They're sitting right there.
The jury determined you did.
The jury got bamboozled.
Bahri then goes on to read a written statement where he challenges evidence from his trial, frustrating the judge even more.
I'm the bleeding definition of innocence. Now I know I have a tough journey ahead of me. But like my brothers and sisters before me, I'm gonna fight and claw for my liberty.
Stop. You're done.
As several deputies surround the defendant, Judge Servito imposes sentence.
It is the sentence of this court the defendant be remanded to the custody of the Michigan Department of Corrections for a period of life without parole, no days credit.
For his 15 convictions, Bahri was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole. Next, we head to Madison, Wisconsin for a sentencing. 24-year-old Chandler Halderson has been convicted on 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, 2 counts of providing false information regarding a missing person, 2 counts of mutilating a corpse, and 2 counts of hiding a corpse. The victims, 50 and 53-year-old Bart and Krista Halderson, the defendant's parents. 8 months earlier, Halderson was living at his parents' home, spending most of his time playing video games. He'd been lying to them about attending college and working for an insurance company. He also told his girlfriend that he was offered a job at SpaceX. When his father figured out that he was lying, Halderson shot his dad in the back, killing him instantly. And when his mother returned home later that day, he shot and killed her too. A few days later, Halderson reported his parents missing and told police they'd been vacationing at a lake house and that he'd been unable to contact them. The defendant even spoke to the media and asked for the public's help in finding his parents.
What can people do to help find them?
Just maybe get the word out that, hey, maybe tell them to call their kids so we know they're all right.
The same day Halderson gave that interview, part of his father's dismembered body was discovered in a rural area a few miles from the family's home. Remains of both victims were later found in different locations throughout the Madison area, including in the family's fireplace. Police also discovered several pieces of physical evidence that incriminated Halderson, including a broken saw blade, newly purchased cleaning products, and a gun hidden in the family's basement which investigators believed was the murder weapon. Police soon charged Halderson with the murders. He pled not guilty. The case went to trial, and after both sides rested, the jury took just 2 hours to return with a verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Chandler M. Halderson, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide.
6 months later, Halderson appears before Judge John Hyland to hear his sentence. Because of the seriousness of the crime and the fact that there's no death penalty in Wisconsin, Halderson is guaranteed a life sentence. The only remaining question is, will he ever be eligible for parole? Prosecutor William Brown argues against it.
Mr. Halderson, by all accounts, chose to commit the crime of first-degree intentional homicide twice on a single day because he was caught lying about where he was working and going to school. And then over the course of several days, chose to cut up those people's bodies and spread them around the state. I don't know how you protect the public from someone like that. It's my position that he should never be released from prison.
The defense argues that because of the defendant's young age, he should be given a chance to rehabilitate and eventually earn parole. Before the judge makes his ruling, the defendant, who did not take the stand at trial, speaks for the first time in court and shows no remorse.
Your Honor, I want to take this opportunity to state my intent to appeal my convictions. If there are any lawyers listening and willing to take on my appeal, take a moment to please reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Finally, it's Judge Hyland's turn to make a statement and issue his ruling on Halderson's chance for parole.
I have to ensure that the only time Mr. Halderson comes back into the community is to have the privilege of a burial that he denied his parents. And so I sentence him to life in prison. I find that he is not to be eligible for extended supervision during that course.
Halderson was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He was able to retain a new lawyer and is appealing the verdict.
How can you sit there and say that I killed my daughter? How?
We're in San Diego, California, for the sentencing of Regina Johnson. The 60-year-old mother was convicted of 2 counts of second-degree murder for shooting and killing her husband and their 14-year-old daughter inside the family apartment. Prosecutors argued Johnson had become furious with her husband because of his long history of infidelity.
The evidence shows that she hunted him down. She walked from the first shot, through Olivia's room, around the corner, followed him as he retreated, stood over him, and executed him.
Johnson admitted to killing her husband, but claimed it was only in retaliation for seeing him shoot their 14-year-old daughter, following an argument the two were having. Her defense team argued she had no motive to kill her only child, who was at the very center of her life.
There's no way Regina Johnson could kill her daughter. It just wasn't her. She loved her too much, not on this day, not on any day.
Johnson remained inside the apartment for 3 days with the bodies of her daughter and husband until a family member tipped off police. Ultimately, blood spatter evidence and analysis of the victim's gunshot wounds pointed to Johnson as being the only shooter. She was found guilty. Now at sentencing, Judge Joan Weber tries to sum up the tragic case.
Only you really know what happened. And you probably never will know the full story.
Judge, how can you say that?
But Johnson interrupts.
They never proved anything. Nobody ever said, they never even had a motive. Why? How can you sit there and say that I killed my daughter? How? You have no, how can you say the things that you're saying?
Facing the finality of the situation, Johnson does not go quietly.
Judge, you are not a fair judge. You are not. You talk about the evidence. You don't even know what the evidence really was. None of that stuff she talked about was true. I shot him because he shot my daughter. She's not fair. What kind of judge is that?
Regina Johnson's final words would not change the outcome of the case. She was sentenced to 80 years to life with the possibility of parole for the murder of her husband and 14-year-old daughter.